you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. My name's Chuck Kaiton. I don't look a thing like Jimmy Murphy. Thank goodness for him. I'm sitting in for Jimmy along with my sidekick, and you know him well as a former coach, hockey aficionado, Mr. Pierre McGuire. And this is the Sick Podcast, the I test, not the J or H, but the I. So, Pierre, welcome to the program, and thanks for this opportunity. And, of course, we wish Jimmy well as I sit in for him.
Well, before we get too deep into the show, Chuck, I just want to tell some people out there about you and what a special friend you are, number one. But number two, the legend that you are in this business. A man that started at the University of Michigan, moved on to the great Wisconsin Badgers under the great Bob Johnson, and then at a very young age, amalgamated into the National Hockey League from the WHA with the Hartford Whalers, and spent your entire career there before moving down to Carolina, becoming a true Whaler Cane and winning the Stanley Cup in 2006. And not only that, you're a Hall of Famer, not just as a broadcaster, but as a friend, as a husband, and as a father. You're an amazing person, and we're really blessed to have you on the show today.
Well, I appreciate that, Pierre. I appreciate it very much because we have been friends for, low on 32, 33 years when you
Maybe
first walked
a little
in.
more, maybe.
So, I remember the 92-93 season when this guy came in. Actually, I first met Pierre, and I don't want to bore our audience with this, but a very quick story. We went to visit our good friend Scotty Bowman. The Whalers were playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I go in the day of the game skate, and lo and behold, Mr. Bowman is holding court there. And of course, he, speaking of Bob Johnson, had taken Bob Johnson's place after Bob unfortunately passed away with the Penguins in 1991. And it was a very sad day in November of that year. And so going to visit Scotty, and I see this guy running around who had I think a little bit more hair than he did, which probably I did too at that time. But the key was he was running video back to the office while I was talking to Mr. Bowman, the winningest coach in hockey. And I said, "Who is this guy?" And Pierre said the same thing to him about me when I left the room. Yeah. And that started a relationship. Little did we know that would, again, be 32, 33 years running now.
You know what the coolest part about being your buddy, Chuck? Going to the airport with you every day. I lived in North Granby. Chuck lived in East Granby. We'd always go to the airport together. We'd always get off the planes late at night or really early in the morning. Chuck would drop me off, or I'd drop Chuck off. But it was those nights on the road, the great dinners, the camaraderie, the extra nights on the road, because we didn't charter back in those days. And I know you'll remember one in particular. We were flying back after an amazing West Coast trip. We won in Quebec, lost in Montreal, won in Winnipeg, OT loss in Calgary, win in Vancouver. We had a great day on the off day in Vancouver, you and I and John Forsland. Then we went into Edmonton and won there when Glenn Sather was coaching the Oilers. And then we flew back to Toronto, stayed overnight, and then caught a charter. And we lost an engine on the flight. And I remember you were sitting across the aisle from me, and I said to the flight attendant, "Go give the guys in the back beer." She goes, "But Mr. McGuire, it's 7 in the morning." I said, "I don't care. We have one engine. We might be crashing." And
yeah, you know what you did. What people don't know is I was flapping my arms trying to keep the plane up in the air, and but it was one of many, many great times we had. Another great, first of all, I've got a bone to pick with you because you don't realize when I take you home from the airport to Granby, today they call those Uber drivers who charge anywhere from $20 to $25 one way. So the way I calculated it, I think you owe me $2,750.40.
You could be right, but then I'm going to give you a friendly reminder. When I was doing commercials for Foxwood Casinos, which you remember very well,
absolutely,
I would bring you with me. We would go to Foxwoods, and I would give you tips on how to play on the dice games.
Right, but I never really did do much with it, but I do remember you. I think that was actually the first year that they opened. And
it was brand new. It was
a
brand new
relationship with them, and I remember coming with you one time there, and it was quite an experience because really I'm not much of a gambler, as my wife Mary knows. I know my father-in-law used to love to go to Atlantic City quite a bit. And but it was never in my blood. But we always had great time. I mean, the whole point of this story that you're telling is that the camaraderie, which is hockey, transcends players. It's also going into the coaches and the broadcasters, and it kind of makes me think now that I've been out of the game for 7 years, having left the Hurricanes in 2018. That I don't know if these broadcasters have as much fun with coaches anymore, like we did.
No,
or the kind
I
of
don't think
relationships,
so.
right?
No.
I mean, I hate to start the topic that way, but when you look at, and I know, having talked to many of the broadcasters that were my contemporaries that are now retired or deceased, unfortunately, like the great Mike Lang and the great Rick Jeanneret from Pittsburgh and Buffalo. And Nick Nixon now retired. Bob Miller retired in Los Angeles. Now
Mike Emmerich.
The Doc, the absolute best. And you worked with him. I loved him because he was, I'm also still the president of the NHL Broadcasters Association. So as an aside, Doc was my vice president for many years. He put the pronunciation guide together and did a phenomenal job for broadcasters. People like that had relationships with the coaches. I guess that's my point. And I don't know if these younger guys today develop that kind of relationship, and maybe they're sheltered away by, PR people, because there's that little wall that seems to protect coaches today from, broadcasters. And I'll give you one quick story. As well as I do, when Chris Kerber lost his father back in late February last year, he asked me to broadcast a game in Washington for the St. Louis Blues radio network. And when I walked into Jim Montgomery's office, it was like old home week. Now, he didn't know me from a hell of beans, but I remembered his coaching career, not only in the NHL, but his playing career at the University of Maine, where he played for Sean Walsh. So I walked into him and I said, "So you're a Walshie, eh?" And he beamed, because I had never really talked to Jim Montgomery very much at all in the course of time. Of course, Whaler people or former Whaler people don't like Bruins people. So, of course, when he was in Boston having record years, he's a great guy. But we had an instant bond right there that I don't think like young broadcasters may develop with not only coaches, but my point is opposing team coaches. And one of the best people I ever met, Pierre, was John Tortorella. And everybody thought he was an ogre. Yeah. I never found him to be that way.
No.
Just one example.
No, I think part of it is the charter airplanes, because we used to stay overnight in cities. We'd go out for dinner after games. You could meet with people. You could talk to people. You could decompress with people. Remember those 5:00 bus rides from the airports from the lobbies of those great hotels that we would stay in to the airports, and we'd all go commercial. And you just developed a bond because everybody's going through the same thing together. That's all gone.
Yeah.
I think it's really all gone. Speaking of all gone, how about Mike Sullivan? That was a quick turnaround. Terrible against Pittsburgh in Madison Square Garden. They laid an egg on Broadway in their first game, Chuck. They really did. Then they go up to Buffalo, and they must have gone to Gabriel's Gate the night before the game, where we used to go for wings all the time, because they put a beat down on the Buffalo Sabres last night, Chuck.
Yeah, I guess, when you're bringing that topic up, and before we talk about, unfortunately, Sully's former team, which seems to be pretty good right now, at least of the first two games, with some new blood and Mr. Sidney and Mr. Evgeny helping with some of these younger players that we'll talk about in a minute. But you're right. But I have a bigger question for you. What's going on with the Buffalo Sabres? When do they turn things around? When are things going to happen? I thought, bringing back a guy who had success, and I certainly know that 20 years ago when he was the Sabres coach against the Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final in 2006. It's a different Buffalo team, and maybe they thought that he coming in would be a panacea, but it doesn't seem to be working. What do you think?
Oh, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen getting hurt doesn't help them. Yeah. So the question marks in goal. Matthias Samuelsson getting hurt doesn't help them. Losing Josh Norris last night in a face-off situation. Chuck, I'm watching this and I'm going, this reminds me of when I was working in Ottawa. I watch him take a face-off and collapse on the ice, and all of a sudden it's career-threatening shoulder problems. Then it happens again, and then you see last night. Now, they haven't said whether it's a shoulder or something else, but that didn't look good. And Josh Norris, and his dad really well from the University hockey circles and also in the NHL, Dwayne Norris. But I would just say this: Buffalo, for whatever reason, can't get traction. Yeah. And I think it's injuries. I think it's some bad decisions. I think it's some contract situations. And I think honestly, Chuck, I think they've overrated some of their players internally. I really do.
Well, at least for Mr. Pagula, whom I met when he took over the team, and we had something in common at the time, Pierre. I don't know if I ever told you this story, where I'm outside the Sabres locker room and I see Terry Pagula over there. He had just bought the team and he had a flip phone he was on. And guess who else had one at the time? I pulled mine out and I said, Mr. Pagula, great minds think alike. And he loved that. And I was wishing him all the best. I thought he was a great guy. We had a great conversation with Mike Robitaille, who was a broadcaster at the time. He was in the hallway at that time as well. But I guess if anything is going to work for him, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. So at least he's got something going in terms of his other investments. And of course, we know that he was the major factor in Penn State hockey as well, being a benefactor to that program.
Yeah, he'll be upset with last night's game, though. That was a tough loss. Clarkson went into Penn State or Hockey Valley last night, beat him 6-4. Gavin McKenna's got 1 goal. He's got 4 assists, and he's -5.
Uh-oh. Wow.
So this is – I'm just saying, all these people thought all these guys would come down from the CHL, the Canadian Hockey League, and dominate college hockey. And for those that watch this podcast, know I've been saying, whoa, time out. Take a deep breath. It's not that easy. You're not playing against 16 and 17-year-olds. You're playing against 23 and 24-year-olds who are big, strong, and they're going to be mad that you're coming down here.
You know, landscape.
That's what's going on, Chuck. That's what's going on.
Yeah. And I want to ask you about some of the other ones because you and I shared some thoughts. People, thank you very much for your introduction to me because people realize I did 9 years of college hockey. And you mentioned Bob Johnson. I was with a University of Michigan program before Red Berenson, which was not very good, unfortunately, when I broke in 1970 with the Wolverines. But the Wisconsin days were great. But my point is, when you're talking about college players today, and especially those elite college hockey players, you don't see it as much in our game as you do in football and basketball. Your thoughts on paying the players today? And, you know, when you mention McKenna, obviously he's doing pretty well financially as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a hypocrite because my kid played Division I hockey and he got paid just like the other guys did on NIL. So I'm not going to. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think that's the issue. I just think people don't realize, especially north of the border, how good college hockey is. I think they're starting to find out how good it is. We've already had a bunch of young men leave the colleges they committed to go back and play in Canada. And part of that is because I think a lot of them weren't ready for the academic commitment, the physical commitment, and the mental drain that can be college hockey. It's hard. It's really hard.
It really is. Now, you talked about upsets. You know that the Broncos of Western Michigan, NCAA, try to be the repeaters here. They're the defending champions on the college level. And that's a near and dear thing to my wife, Mary, who went to school there for a year. And I think that they suffered a little bit of a backpedal as well, didn't they, with the Ferris wheels?
Yeah, Ferris State took the wood to him last night. Now, to be fair, Hobie Hedquist was a goaltender for Ferris State last night. He stopped 48 of 50 shots.
Okay.
To be fair. Now, they go back to Big Rapids tonight. The game's in Big Rapids, Michigan tonight. So it's a back-to-back home-and-home situation. Brett Riley has been on this show many times. He's a young man whose father I worked with. His grandfather coached the 1960 Olympic team for gold for Team USA, legendary U.S. hockey family. Brett's going to engineer a lot of upsets at Ferris State. He is. It was a brilliant hire by the people in Big Rapids to get Brett Riley, number one. Number two, Pat Ferschweiler was really close to being the coach in Philadelphia with the Flyers. Keith Jones, the president of Philadelphia, is a Western Michigan graduate. Yep. Obviously, Western winning the national championship last year, as you correctly say. Pat's a really good coach. This isn't on him. The big thing is if Ferris can pull an upset tonight in Big Rapids, that program is back on the map, number one. And number two, there'll be a lot of doubters about whether Western Michigan can defend or not.
All right, let's talk about surprises now. Enough about college hockey, I suppose, and let's talk about the National Hockey League, because you spoke about Mike Sullivan and the bounce back the Rangers had in Buffalo after losing the game before against a team that I don't think anybody bet would have been 2-0 at this time, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Boy, oh boy, Dan Muse deserves a lot of credit. And I know you know a lot of the people that Dan has worked with, namely Peter Laviolette, who was part of your Stanley Cup championship ring in 2006 with Carolina. Dan's done a really good job. Chuck, as you know, I do all their pregame shows in Pittsburgh with Paul Steigerwald and Colby Armstrong. And I have to tell you, you watch the games and you really scrutinize everything that's going on because you want to have a responsible pregame show. And what stands out to me, and it started in preseason, they're a hardworking team. They're diligent in terms of playing in their own zone. They're not afraid to block shots. They pay attention to a lot of little details, and they have a line right now with Brazeau, Malkin, and Mantha. Big, all over 6'3", Chuck. All big people. Malkin obviously skating great so far to start this year. Mantha can really skate, and I know you know his grandfather really well. And Brazeau is like found money, an undrafted player out of North Bay, Ontario. This team in Pittsburgh are going to cause some problems for people.
Absolutely. And what Pierre's referring to as Anthony's grandfather is the late, great defenseman, Marcel Pronovost. And Marcel Pronovost, when I was a kid growing up in Detroit, played for the Detroit Red Wings, went on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I had a wonderful exchange with him, along with Bobby Bond, the former Leaf, at one of the Hockey Hall of Fame weekends several years ago. Just about maybe 5 or 6 years before Marcel passed away. And what a gentleman he was. In fact, I was doing interviews at that time for our local radio station, as I was doing a hockey talk show once a week here in Raleigh at the time. So this is going back about 22, 23 years ago when I saw Mr. Pronovost. And I said to him, you were one of my favorite defensemen. With the Red Wings. He played with the great Gordie Howe, Alex Delvecchio, Ted Lindsay. You go right down the list. Roger Crozier was in goal, Doug Barkley on defense. And so you can go all the way. So some of the old timers that are listening to us would remember those days in the mid 60s when Marcel Pronovost played before he went to the Leafs. And of course, but that's what it's all about. Hockey families, right? I mean, we could go on and on about the number of people. In fact, I got to put a plug in for your son, Ryan. Who's playing in the Minnesota Wild organization. And you talk about a hardworking kid, not trying to blow smoke at you, but your son, I know you're very proud of him, and I'm proud of him because I remember playing street. I'm going to take some of the credit because I remember coming to your house in Westmount and playing street hockey with him when he was about 9 years old. So I had something to do with it because I shot one at his head and he decided not to be a goalie.
Oh, that's a good story. That's good.
It was a rubber ball too. Don't get Melanie upset.
Oh no, Melanie wouldn't care. She was probably like, he breaks all the panes of glass when he's shooting those pucks. It doesn't matter. She'd be so
what
upset.
A great kid you have there. And hey, but that's what it's all about. You know, you're influenced by the game. You work hard, and he gives me a lot of faith that there's some great young players coming up in the NHL. And,
there are. I agree. Hey, Chuck, you're talking about Detroit, and you're talking about Marcel Pronovost, and you're talking about all these great players that have played in Detroit over all the years. Are you concerned about them as a team right now? This is a team that hasn't been in the playoffs for almost a decade, Chuck. You know, you start to think about this is a critical franchise for the league. They haven't played one playoff game in Little Caesars Arena. I know it's near and dear to your heart. Yeah. I know your relationship with the late Gordie Howe. I'm aware of all these things. Chuck, this is starting to teeter. Like, they've got a big weekend. They have home against Toronto on Saturday night. Then they're in Toronto for a 4:00 game Monday. Let's just say they don't win the next two. They're 0-3 in the division. They're 0-3 to start the year. And you know better than anybody, the Atlantic is the most difficult division in hockey right now.
Absolutely. And just like the Terry Pagula case, he's got the Buffalo Bills to lean on. Maybe Chris and the Illich family have the Detroit Tigers to lean on, because Game 5's in Seattle tonight with Tariq Skubal on the mound for the Tigers. And, of course, the Red Wings and Tigers are linked by the Illich family and Little Caesars. So, I don't know. There's got to be concern, a great concern, because it's a wonderful hockey town. As you know, it is named Hockey Town, but the fans deserve a lot better. And I don't know, what do you feel the missing link is there? Because when Scotty Bowman was there and they were building and they went to the Stanley Cup, those numerous years, 97, 98, 2002. And then, of course, later when they had the
08 and 09,
back-to-back
they go
years.
back-to-back final, 08 and 09. I mean, they win the
Absolutely.
cup in 08, they lose in 09 in a game 7.
Right. So what's happened in the last 16 years since then, I guess, is the question. What do you think?
It dried up in the drafting. For sure,
Yeah.
it dried up. Now it's back. The one thing, we had Chris Draper on the other day. He's their assistant general manager. He's also head of amateur scouting. I think they're starting to reel it in a little bit. They're starting to reel it in terms of goal. They're starting to reel it in terms of defense. But I looked at that defense last night, and I'm watching it. Ben Sherratt's not, and Ben's a tough kid. He's not getting any younger, though. Travis Hamonick's a tough guy. I had him in Ottawa. He's not getting any younger.
Right.
Moritz Seider didn't even come close to having an A game last night. Simon Edvinsson, who I watched forever playing for London, Gothenburg in Sweden, he did not have a good game last night. Their best player was a guy that had 2 AHL games in his back pocket, and that's Sandin Pellikka. Chuck, I'm concerned about the D, and they spent a lot, and you and I both know John Gibson. Does John Gibson still have an A game left? We're going to find out. It's early, but they need him to have an A game, because if they don't, they're going to have a problem there. I'm telling you, you could see it in the post game last night with Todd McClellan. He was right to the point, and he was hard on it. I'm just a little worried about it.
Yeah, he's an old school, take no prisoners type of coach who's black and white. And even Dylan Larkin said after the game, he said, none of us played well. I mean, that's an understatement. But I mean, he's near and dear to my heart. He's an old Michigan guy. But the bottom line to me is they just, I don't know, do they have a mix? Do they have enough gumption, physicality? Organization shouldn't be a problem because, as you said, Tom McClellan is a very experienced coach. Again, I wonder what the missing formula is there.
We're going to find out, though. This weekend is going to tell us a lot. I want to celebrate the Montreal Canadiens, though. I didn't like their third period in Toronto in their first game. In fact, I thought it was terrible. I thought their second period was good. I thought their first period was adequate. It was not an artistic impression game. It was a bad game for both teams. Toronto wins the opener. But Montreal last night was full value. You could see their skill level. You could see their pace. You could see how Kaiton Gooley can influence a game. I thought Mike Matheson was the best Montreal Canadian player, and I'm a big part of that, Chuck. I'm really believing it more and more as I see it. He's going to handle minutes probably between 20 and 22, so he's not going to get to 25 to 28, and he'll never have to be in a power play. And without that pressure to the power play, Chuck, I think it changes the entire dynamic for this player that needs a contract after this year.
This is an interesting early schedule in this compressed schedule in an Olympic year, Pierre. And some of the games we've talked about already are original 6 matchups. You just talked about Detroit and Toronto. You have New York Rangers, Boston Bruins coming up soon. Montreal, you mentioned the Canadiens. Now they're going to play a Chicago Blackhawk team tomorrow night. Tonight, the NHL is dark, no games. But they're going to be in Chicago. And I actually was impressed with the way the Blackhawks played on opening night, even though they lost. And I thought they followed it up with a pretty good effort in Boston the other night.
They're going to surprise teams because they've got mobility on the back end. They're going to be pretty solid in goal with Knight and Soderblom. And they have Drew Commesso, who's available, playing in the American Hockey League right now. He's a real good goaltender out of Boston University. But to me, the thing that's going to hold them back, lack of depth down the middle. Connor Bedard's not a center. Connor Bedard's a gunner. And you've seen it. I mean, you grew up watching Bobby Hull. You grew up watching all these great Mike Bossy. You go look at all these great gunners. Connor Bedard's a gunner. He's not a playmaker. He's a gunner. And so I don't see, and he can't win a faceoff. Their power play, if they don't find a way to spend more time in the offensive zone, is going to be a problem. And part of not being in the offensive zone, Chuck, they don't win the initial draw.
Yeah.
And so the other team gets the puck down, and then it's 30 seconds wasted. And then it's a problem because teams will start gearing up in the neutral zone and they'll shut your slingshot down, and then you got a problem.
Yeah. How do you like their defense in Chicago? I mean, I thought they've worked hard, but of course, let's not kid ourselves. It's 2 games into the season. Nobody has the big bumps and bruises anymore, and nobody has got the ego bruises of a 20 or 25 game schedule where they may be 10-15, let's say, or 9-17 by that time.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's too early to evaluate them, but I like the way they work, at least in the first two games.
No, you know what? I like the way they work too. And I think long term it's going to be good. I don't think they're a playoff team this year, Chuck, but I do think they're going to make pretty significant inroads. Just like I think Anaheim, even though they lost in Seattle last night, Chuck, I watched that game. They were in most of that game. There was just a bad play. Brandon Martor played a great play. Troy Terry made a bad play. Mason Marchment scores a huge goal to put them ahead. And obviously they win the game 3-1, but they really won the game 2-1 on Marchment's goal. But I think Anaheim's going to cause problems. There's some teams that even San Jose, San Jose deserved a better fate against Vegas last night. The way they lost their game to Vegas is heartbreaking, but I think Ryan Warsofsky, their young coach, and the staff around him are going to get that team playing harder. So there's some teams that might not make the playoffs, but they're going to cause a lot of heartache. They are.
Well, yeah, this is what's a lot different today, I think, for hockey fans who watch these 32 teams. I remember the days when I started in 79 where you could delineate almost three classes of teams. There were the elite teams in that era, Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, New York Islanders. Then there were the teams that would be in the middle, and I would like to think the Hartford Whalers were one of those, and that was the great middle. A number of teams in that time, the 21-team National Hockey League. And then there were the 4 or 5 teams that you knew you'd walk into their building and win, or they'd come into your building and win. And one of those teams was the Toronto Maple Leafs, ironically, or a much better team now, but they were, not very good. Neither were the Detroit Red Wings, for that matter, at that time. But it's all different today. Anybody can beat anybody today, and I guess that's the competitive advantage that Commissioner Bettman's always been talking about, that you can't leave your seat, even if you're down 3-0. That's not a safe lead anymore in the NHL.
No, it's not. I'm glad you brought up the Toronto Maple Leafs too, Chuck. We have a lot of Toronto people that listen and watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
One of the coolest things that I think about your career is all the different people you've gotten to be friends with over time. And one of the people I really admire, the last man to win the Conn Smythe and the only man to win the Conn Smythe as a Toronto Maple Leaf, is Dave Keon. And I know you have an amazing relationship with Dave out of Rouyn-Noranda. In fact, they named the arena in Rouen after Dave.
Yep.
Tell us about Dave Keon. I know him. I want you to tell the listeners about your relationship and about Dave Keon.
Well, he, again, was at the time I met him, was one of my idols in a 6-team NHL that I followed. I was 15 years old when they last won a Stanley Cup, and he was the Conn Smythe winner in 1967. And he was a very complex guy to get to know. But here's how I broke the ice with David. He would be talking trivia with his teammates, and I used to hand out the plane tickets when we traveled commercially in my first year. And I overheard him talking at the time to Al Sims, the old defenseman.
Bobby Orr's former partner.
There you go. Absolutely. So Al, the former Bruin, was playing with us, and so he and Keon were going back and forth with trivia questions. So I butted in, and I handed David his usual window ticket, and I said, by the way, true or false, Murray Hall of Let's Make a Deal was once a hockey announcer for the yeah, what I say, Murray Hall. I was thinking one of my Badger players. Monty Hall, you're right. Thank you. From Let's Make a Deal was once a hockey announcer. He says, you're full of crap. I said, okay. And then I handed the ticket, walked away. And you had to earn your stripes with Dave Keon. And if he thought you were like a dud, mentally, or if he thought he could push you around, he tested you. About a day or two later on that same road trip, we were going to Atlanta at that time, the old Flames. And so a day or two later, he comes to me and said, I didn't know that. He must have researched this. He says, you were right. Monty Hall was the New York Rangers announcer in 1956 for one season.
He was.
With Bud Palmer. And so I told you, and then I got instant credibility. And then ever since then, we became friends. As freaky as that story sounds, it's true. And the same thing with other guys that I've had great relationships with. And I thank you for pointing that out, because I've been blessed. You talked about Gordie Howe. never in my imagination would I've ever thought I'd meet the man and also be part of his funeral, unfortunately, 10 years ago. It was a sad, and I'm still friends with Mark, Marty, and Murray. And I converse with him. In fact, every March 31st, I text all three of his sons and say, I'm remembering your dad right now on his birthday. And he would be 97 years old this year, back last March 31st.
You know, this is for all the young fathers out there that are watching this, or just young people that really care about the game. Dr. Murray Howe, who lives in Toledo, Ohio, he wrote a book called The 9 Life Lessons I Learned from My Dad.
Yes, that was a fantastic book. Glad you're bringing that up.
I encourage everybody out there. And I sent a note. I actually called Mark Howe up, and I said, hey, Mark, I need your brother's number. He goes, which one, Pierre? I said, Dr. Murray. He goes, why do you want his number? I go, because he wrote this book, and I read it, and I think it's phenomenal. I really appreciated it. So I got in touch with Dr. Howe, and it was awesome. It was so cool. And, he played hockey at the University of Michigan, so people know, following in the family tradition of being a hockey player. And it's an amazing book. I know you read it, and I encourage everybody else out there to read it. I really do.
Let me tell you a quick story before we take a break and talk to our people about our great sponsors of the eye test here with Pierre McGuire. My name's Chuck Kaiton. Tell you a quick Murray story. When he went to Michigan, as you rightly pointed out, that's where he met his wife.
Wow.
And it was a lady that he met on campus, and he started dating her. And he says, what's your name, young lady? My name is Colleen. I was named after my dad was a hockey fan, and some old geezer hockey fan. I don't follow the game, but that was his wife's name, so he named me after her.
Wow.
And the retort from Murray was, well, that old geezer is my father, and my mom is Colleen. How about that? I mean, you can't write this stuff.
No, that's an amazing. I've never heard that story.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
So before you go to the great sponsorships, I want to give you one quick Mark Howe story.
Okay.
So I know you spent many nights at the Fairmont Hotel in San Jose, which doesn't exist anymore, bankrupt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I know you and I have actually been in the grill together there. We've had a few steak dinners there over the years. So one night I'm in there, I have an off night, and Mark is there. He's scouting for Detroit, which he still does. And so we're sitting there, we're having a great time. We're watching a game on TV, and we're sitting at the bar having a steak. And I said to Mark, I said, I have so much respect for your father. Like everybody said how mean and tough he was and all this stuff. I go, I don't see that in him. I mean, I watched him play. I was a kid. He goes, Pierre, let me tell you a story. And this is really quick. He goes, I was practicing in Houston, and we were in the WHA. And there was a guy that kept going after my brother, Marty. He kept going after Marty. And so finally Dad, and he didn't call him Gordy, he called him Dad. He says, Dad had had enough. So he went up to him and he says, you better stop it. And the guy goes, oh, come on, Gordy, you're not going to do anything to me. And Gordy said, no, I'm serious. You better stop it. Now I'm hearing this from Mark Howe. And I'm sitting there laughing. I said, there's no way anything bad happened. And all of a sudden Mark goes, oh yeah, it did. Gordy knocked the guy out. He went from calling him Dad to calling him Gordy. It's almost like Gordy flipped. And he said, Gordy knocked him out. He knocked him out cold. And the guy, he was never part of the team again.
Well, I mean, that's interesting because that happened on a professional level. How about if it happens on a level where you're playing against old timers and firemen and policemen in a charity game in Enfield, Connecticut? Same thing happened. There was some guy who thought he was going to run Marty Howe in an exhibition that we had at the Enfield Twin Rinks in Connecticut. We were taping the game for Continental Cable Television. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, Marty gets cross-checked from behind by one of these guys. And Gordy, who was also playing in the game, came right over and put the stick right across the guy's neck and pitchforked him to the ice. And that was in a game. It was, as they say in Britain, a friendly, right?
Oh.
Friendly there.
All right. Hey, get to the sponsors. We got to pay you. Get to the sponsors.
I love this because we have some wonderful Italian restaurants here in the Raleigh area, but open 23 years, and I know this is near and dear to your heart, Pierre. Not many restaurants have been open that long and succeed. But there's private dining rooms, and we're talking about Vago right now in Westmount. They've got private dining rooms that can help you in any occasion, from engagement parties, corporate meetings, lots of free parking after 6 o'clock. And they're open Monday to Saturday evenings and lunch on Tuesday to Friday. They've got fresh quality ingredients, old style Italian, new Italian. So come see Pierre's friend Tommaso. Tommaso, the most popular man next to Pierre. Well, maybe he's probably more popular than Pierre in Westmount. Okay? It's Tommaso at Vago. And I can't wait to come up there someday myself, as long as Mr. McGuire is buying. And also, we have another fine sponsor. You can bet the beauties with Betway, and you can get a deposit match, that matchup bonus, up to $300 on your first deposit. So all you have to do is scan this QR code on the screen that you see, or you can click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. This is only available to new customers. Remember, only new customers. Terms and conditions apply. The offer is not available in Ontario, and you have to be 18 or over to win. And don't forget, we always want to make sure that you play responsibly. Again, Pierre, play responsibly. That's all I have to say.
Have you ever read promos before? Have you ever done this before?
I've never done this before. I haven't done it in 8 years. So, I mean, I actually have done financial shows, and we talk about mundane things. Nothing as fun as this, I can tell you that.
You know what? You never cease to amaze me, Charles. Never. That was spectacular. If I'm the people at Vago, I'm really thrilled. If I'm the people at Betway, I'm like, let's get this guy on board. Well, seriously, fantastic. But the biggest thing about
Chianti in you at Vago, next time you
go. I'm going to tell. This is for you. The McGuire family have had birthdays at Vago. We've celebrated great successes for friends like Scotty Bowman when the rink in Verdun was named after him.
Oh wow!
We've dealt with personal tragedy there. The people have been unbelievable to us, and nothing was greater than the night that my father was killed on our land in Canada. And we all went down there. We all went down to Vago, and I cannot, to this day, and that happened in 2008, August of 2008. To this day, every time I go in there, somebody asks me about that. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, that happened. I'll never forget it. That happened right after my oldest son, Nelson, married his lovely wife, Jennifer, in Seattle. And I remember we were driving home from that wedding after we were in Detroit, took my mom back, who had her issues at the time. They were driving home, and I remember you calling me, and I was about 10 minutes away from Raleigh, and I almost drove off the road when your father, Rex, passed away. So, but hey, happier time. I get a couple of games, unless you want to take questions. Is this the
I think we got to get to some questions here. Maybe you can fill in the games. I know you want to talk about hockey games, so let's talk to the listeners. Come on.
Absolutely. So are we ready to go with that?
Oh, Shane.
All right. We've got one from JUS 031017, and he's got a question about Matthew Schaefer and his NHL debut. Pierre, how did you find it last night?
Cool, calm, and collected. I thought he was great. Reminded me a lot in the way he moved the puck, not skated the puck, moved the puck a little bit like Christopher Pronger, who you called his first ever game in the National Hockey League. I loved his assist on the goal. Got better as the game went along physically. I think obviously he's going to be a special player.
Good. Yeah. He was very impressive in that game. I think
what's amazing, Chuck, he just turned 18. Yeah. He only played 17 games last year in Erie. He got hurt at the World Junior, broke his collarbone. That's a tough transition, Chuck.
Oh my gosh, especially as a defense. When you compare him to a guy like Chris Pronger, I mean, from the standpoint of that age and the maturity he has, I know it's a different game today. And of course, Prongs has gone on to a Hall of Fame career, as we know. I saw his first bonus check, by the way. $833,000 before the salary cap era.
Hey, I negotiated his first contract.
Oh, so you're the guy. Okay. We were going, that's another one. We were going to Cincinnati to play the fledgling Florida Panthers.
We were,
Remember that?
and in the building that looked like old Maple Leaf Gardens.
I know, the
in
Cincinnati Gardens, where
Oh,
Oscar
yeah.
Robertson was a star with the old Cincinnati Royals.
That's right.
Yeah, and we were on the bus after we landed. You probably remember this. We were sitting there. I was sitting next to Chris, and he pulls out his check. He says, "What do I do with this?" I said, "Well, have you opened a bank account yet?" He's come a long way since that time.
Yes,
and now he's a media star. Now he's going to be on Hockey Night in Canada tomorrow night.
He is.
Right? Yeah. So got another question, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's go to Gabriel Lamb, who says, I know it's been one game, but at what point do we need to push that panic button for the Detroit Red Wings? Because Gabriel says last night was just terrible.
We talked about that before, Gabriel, just before you came on, Chuck and I, and I'm really concerned. I'm concerned about the defense. John Gibson's going to have to play a whole lot better. They need more consistent offense. You know, Larkin and Raymond have good chemistry. I don't know if this is too much for Emmett Finney, a 7th-round pick out of Kamloops, to play in the first line. I didn't see a lot out of Kane and DeBrincat last night. I know DeBrincat hit the post and Montreal capitalized. They were opportunistic after that, but they need a lot more from a lot of guys. I didn't like their game, and I know it's early, but this weekend is huge for them. Chuck, you know it because you're a Michigan guy. If they lose at home on Saturday and then go into Toronto and lay an egg on Monday afternoon, I don't know what's going to happen there. I really don't know.
Yeah, you know, it's never too early. I mean, you know, how many times do we hear the old cliche, the points you get in October are as important as the ones you get in late March and April when you're on your playoff drive. And it's very true. But sometimes we scoff at that and say, well, we'll be okay if you're a fan of a team that's like 0-3 or 1-5 or something like that. But it's true. You can put yourself in a pretty deep hole, and it doesn't take till American Thanksgiving. It can happen at Canadian Thanksgiving, which is Monday. You know,
That's right.
for some of those teams, it may have already happened, like we said. So it's a big weekend for the Red Wings.
Yep.
I know if we have a
just you asked for
here. Oh, same question here. Pierre, your thoughts on the Utah Mammoth, not the Utah Hockey Club anymore, sending TJ Aginla back to Kelowna. And does he have a good chance to be on that Canadian World Junior team?
He does have a very good chance of being in the World Junior team, which is really important. Kamloops and Kelowna both have really good teams, and you know what? They're getting pushed by Penticton right now, who's in their first year in the Western Hockey League. Coach Harbinson's done a great job there. So I know Jerome really well. I've talked to Jerome a lot about his son. I think he's got a legitimate chance to be part of that Canadian team. And I think Utah used the right decision-making when it came to sending him back to junior hockey.
I don't know what it does, but it sticks in my mind some of the trades in the NHL that are significant. Jerome Aginla going for Joe Nieuwendyk.
From Dallas to Calgary. That was for Joe Nieuwendyk, though. So you got Dallas won a cup, and Calgary eventually went to the final.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that was one of those things where Jerome was an unknown entity to some. Yeah. And, of course, the immediate dividends that Joey Nieuwendyk paid for the Dallas Stars was interesting.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was Al Coates who was a GM at Calgary at the time, or was it Dougie Riseborough? It was Al Coates, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah, because
it was Coates, and I think Dougie Riseborough had just moved on. I think it was Coates.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're right there. And Al Coates, of course, went to the Bill Torrey School of GMs because he went from a PR director of the Red Wings to becoming a GM, just like Bill Torrey did with the old California Seals.
But he started with Pittsburgh Hornets, didn't he, Bill Torrey? Pittsburgh Hornets.
But the Seals is where he was the PR guy, and then he worked for Frank Selke Jr. back then. Well, in that 67 expansion.
That is true. And I knew Frank Selke Sr. How about that?
No, you knew him. Well, we know Dick Irvin Jr., who I hope will watch us sometime.
I'm going to send this to him so he can critique us.
How about these two nonagenarians that we know? Both Bowman and Irvin. Both 92 years. I think actually
Dick's got a year older.
93, exactly. 93, I was just going to say. And these two guys are as sharp as a tack. I just hope I can make it to 90 or 93. Forget about my mental acuity.
Well, I'm not worried about the mental part with you.
Well, okay, that's very nice of you to say. You mean about you or me? I don't know. We got another question here from our viewers, listeners. Tal, let's see what we got here. All right, we've got Randy Workman who wants to know, how do you think legends like Guy Lafleur or Bobby Hull would do in the National Hockey League today? Very interesting question. A lot of people ask these things, going generation to generation, Pierre. I don't know if you can make a comparison, can you?
No, but those guys were gunners. Could you imagine those guys with the new carbon fiber sticks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Stan Mikita and Bobby Hull really started the curve sticks in Chicago because they got a warped stick that came
After practice. Yeah, Stan Mikita broke his stick. He started stick handling with it and said, hey, I can control a puck pretty good like this, and there's no rules.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. You know what's a good story, though? Today, when I was talking to our good friend, Mr. Bowman, we were talking about Doug Harvey because we were talking about the chip-in play last night that tied the game in the Vegas San Jose game, and it's Jack Eichel who threw the puck up high in the air, and it bounced and eventually goes in. And what's amazing about that is I said to Scotty, you know what that reminded me of, Scotty? And he goes, no. I said, it reminded me of J.C. Tremblay when he played for Montreal, would score 2 or 3 goals a year doing that. And he said, well, Pierre, he learned that from a guy that was pretty good. I go, who is that? He goes, Doug Harvey. He says, Doug Harvey would practice that on his forehand and his backhand all the time. So I didn't know, because when I saw Doug Harvey, he wasn't playing for Montreal. He was playing for St. Louis. And so I asked Scotty, I said, what kind of stick did he use? You know what Scotty said to me? He goes, Pierre, he used a straight stick, and he made it a little bit longer and a little bit fatter. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that Doug Harvey used a straight stick. And so this is the legend that Bob Johnson was always about. He said, Pierre, every day learn something new about the game. Yeah. I try to learn more than one thing every day, but that was one that I learned. He said, and Scotty told me, he said, he would practice that every single day, Doug Harvey.
Yeah. I used to, when I described Hurricane and Whaler games, I would call that the 3-dimensional dump in, or a parabolic dump into the zone. Where that puck would come around. I was a math major, so you had to use some of that terminology.
You know what, though? But getting back to Randy's question, I think Lafleur, Bossy, Hull, Keon, all these guys would have thrived. Could you imagine Jean Beliveau in the game today? Come on, Bobby Orr in the game today.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing, they wouldn't want to play against guys like Ted Lindsay or Brian Trottier, guys that played on the edge. These guys think they're on the edge now. You should have seen what those guys are like on the edge.
Well, and that's the thing, having transcended these generations, because I am in my 70s, I would say that the only thing I don't like about what goes on today, and I know, when you talk about Bobby Orr, I've spoken with him about this and other veteran people from the game, even from the 80s and 90s. People like a Chris Pronger, who was, a little bit mean himself. He knew what to do as well. He was probably the last of the Mohicans when it came to that type of physical play, try to get away, in a one referee NHL, by the way, not the 2 referee NHL that we have today. But today, I just think the speed of the game and the at times recklessness of hitting from behind, that's just bothering me a lot. And I think it bothers a lot of those veteran guys. And you would hate to see some of those guys today, like a Guy Lafleur, get run from behind. Yeah. There was a lot more respect for those type of players.
Well, remember, guys,
can you imagine Bobby Hull getting hit from behind? He'd come up swinging, but you would never see that. There was a lot more respect, and that's what I want to see more.
A lot of guys didn't wear helmets.
Yeah,
that's part of it. And you know how much I love college hockey, and I know how much you love college hockey. But when you go watch college hockey, those hits are far more ferocious in college than they are in pro. And part of the reason why is because guys have full face shields. They use their heads. Ask Aaron Ward, who lives down in Carolina near you. They use their heads as battering rams. It's almost like they're defensive backs in football. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it really is. Do we have another person. Oh,
You
Brad
just
K.
keep asking, Chuck, and don't worry, the questions will show up. You just keep asking.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. We have Brad K, and I love the flag of Ukraine there. What are the chances we get an outdoor game in and around Hartford? How about that one with the Bruins and the Hurricanes? And the Hurricanes in Whalers sweaters. I don't know. I don't know your thoughts on this. Let me give you a quick thought about this from my standpoint.
Yeah.
It's been talked about, from what I understand, even though I've been out of the organization for 7 years. I don't know if it'll come to fruition. And the only reason I say that, Pierre, and maybe you could shed more light from your contacts and your opinion, but I think that feeling is a minority feeling among fans in Hartford, because there are still a lot of people bitter 28 years later about the team moving to Raleigh. And it would be very interesting. And I think Tom Dundon, the ownership of the Hurricanes, would probably have to think twice before they would do that. And I don't know what the Boston Bruins posture would be, but what's your thought?
I wish Governor, and this is not a political thing, but I know how much hockey meant to Governor Weicker, who was the governor when I was coaching and living in Connecticut and coaching the Whalers. And his son, Gray, was a tremendous player at St. Lawrence University and also played professionally with the LA Kings. And I think if Governor Weicker or somebody like him that really had a passion for hockey was there, he would find a way to smooth the waters. I just don't know if that could happen. And could they play it at the baseball stadium, Chuck? I don't know. Could they play it at University of Connecticut? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying, Chuck? But I would say it'd be so cool to do. It'd be so cool.
Well, they made renovations to now what was the XL Center, which was the Hartford Civic Center. Yeah. They've just undergone millions of dollars in renovations for the Wolfpack. And Governor Lamont, the current governor of Connecticut, seems to be on board with hockey. We had the 50th anniversary of hockey in Hartford back last January 10th. I was honored enough to be there as the MC, where they acknowledged hockey on January 10th, 1975, the start of it. But I think that I would love to see an exhibition game for old time's sake, but I would really wonder how it would be attended. I would hope that, if they decide to do it, I think personally it'd be difficult to do it from what I understand.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do, but I do think it'd be well attended. I go back in that area a lot. I've got a cousin that lives in West Hartford near the jewelry store where you usst to do all the commercials.
Oh, Gem Jewelry.
There you go, Gem Jewelry.
Sorry to our two sponsors here, but they don't own a restaurant or a betting site, so I guess there's no conflict of interest.
All right, get to the next question. Come on.
All right, what do we got here? All right, Steve Lash has a question. Pierre, you've always said that your Mendoza line for the playoffs was American Thanksgiving, but then given the shortened Olympic season, has that moved forward for you? And if so, when do you think the old line is now?
No, I think one of the big things to pay attention to now is before you go for the Olympic break. And if you're double-digit points out of a playoff spot, you're not making it. It'll be too hard. So you've got to keep it within 9 points or less. And if you're below 10, I think going into the 10 or more back, you'll have to go and start thinking seriously what you want to do at the trade deadline, which is after the Olympics. So that's my Mendoza line.
Okay, very good. I hit 200 in high school too, so I can certainly relate to it. Next question coming up is from Mitch Belland. I hope or Binon. We'll see. I'm bilingual. Did Carter Hart sign with anybody, or should the Oilers pick up the hometown kid? And I'll have a follow-up on that for you, Pierre. I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think of teams kind of shying away from those kids, even though they're innocent? They're claimed innocent in their trials. Hello? Did we lose Pierre?
American team, and if I were betting, Chuck, I'm thinking Carter Hart's going to sign with the Vegas Golden Knights. Nobody's told me that. I've looked at all the rosters, and I think that's the fit for Carter Hart.
Okay, we lost your video there for a second, so I didn't hear the first part. But that's what your answer is. You feel Golden Knights may be the only possibility.
No, I think there'll be other possibilities, but I think if he's looking at the situation, I would be shocked if they made an offer that he wouldn't go there. I think it just makes so much sense for him to go there.
All righty. Next question's coming up.
And I think that's it for today, Chuck.
Oh, okay. All right.
Move along here because Shane's got to get going.
Oh, okay, Shane. Well, I'll tell you what, Pierre, this has been a wonderful experience being with you, filling in for Jimmy Murphy, who we wish the best for. And we want to say for our U.S. Viewers and listeners, have a wonderful Columbus Day. And for our Canadian listeners, don't eat too much turkey. It's a Canadian Thanksgiving coming up on Monday. And it's also, if you were an LA Kings fan, Bob Miller's 87th birthday.
Wow, that's cool.
So let's give him a hand and give Pierre a hand. And thank you, Pierre, for the opportunity. It's been great working with you.
This is not the last time we'll be working together, my man. You were fantastic. Thank you so much for making time and for filling in for Jimmy. Hard to do, but you did it very well for a neophyte.
Thank you very much. So again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening and watching the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.